Hey RATBAGGERS, just a quick video today going over the 10 things you need to know about AGHASBA. It is launching on the 19th of November and I'm going to give you the lowdown on everything you need to know. Achievements, character customization, co-op, crossplay and a lot more. If you find this video useful, make sure you subscribe to my channel, Jade PG Crafted. Look out for a special mammoth live stream for me when the game goes live on the 19th. And obviously I'm going to have a ton of guides and gameplay. So let's go. AGHASBA, 10 things you need to know. So number one, what is AGHASBA? It is of course a big, massive open world kind of crafting farming game. Not really full-blown survival, more in terms of a city builder as you try and promote lots of different farms to grow, hopefully encouraging wildlife to spawn, and then you can take care of the ecology by pruning, gathering resources, as well as maybe killing certain creatures. This will all form big massive balance in keeping the ecologies alive and making sure you're doing the right things to progress. What it isn't Ark Survival Evolved. Although there are over 45 different creatures, not many of them can you actually directly tame. Instead it's more a case of feeding them and getting resources. There will be some creatures you'll be able to ride and utilise to get around, but the bulk of them, by the looks of things, are certainly more a case of just getting stuff from them as long as you keep them fed and happy. What it's actually more like is games like Viva Pinata, some elements of games like Breath of the Wild, and a little Animal Crossing, with a unique art style combining modern technology with inspiration from places and people like Studio Ghibli. In fact, they even got some of the background art you'll see in the game to be directly painted by people that have worked on Studio Ghibli movies. You'll be placing different types of construction areas and buildings down that will generate resources for you or simply there for decoration. It does have some very light building elements where you'll be able to place certain structures down to help make everything come together, but again it's not necessarily a builder's game where you've got individual walls being placed, rooftops and more. As far as we know from description and some of the gameplay trailers on show. You will absolutely be farming, growing crops and then utilising them, as I said, to feed some of the creatures that you're now encouraging to come back to AGHASBA. All while you're seeking out certain artifacts and ancient technology, perhaps from some of the ruins from this once beautiful land. If that all sounds a bit too cosy, don't worry, there is a darker side and filled with action, as many parts of the huge map will be withered and you'll have to hopefully turn these into lush lands and maybe defend yourself against various attacks from all sorts of creatures. Number 2, where does it release and what kind of game is it? It will be an early access title, which means there's going to be more maybe bugs and issues than you're used to dealing with. Yes, even on PlayStation, which isn't famous for having this. Xbox have got their game preview, Steam have their early access, but it's the first time that PlayStation have advertised the game as early access. Before we've had certain things like Ark and others, maybe not finished, but technically they were classed as full games. So what that means, there will be a major discount at the moment for the game, and then once it leaves early access it will increase. So it's around $30 or £30 depending on where you live, which is still pretty hefty considering the price of usual early access titles, but I'm hoping the quality will definitely match. With early access games you expect sometimes they may have to wipe or you may lose progress. They've not planned any of this just yet, but certainly with previous other games, it's the likelihood that that can happen. You can play with 1 to 4 players at the moment, but they may increase that in the future and you can play offline. As usual, if you're playing with your friends, you will need PS Plus. There will be trophies and achievements with the early access launch, something pretty unusual as most early access games don't add these until much later. Game goes live at 5 PM UK time on the 19th, that's 12 PM Eastern time and around 9 AM on the West Coast of America. You can still go ahead and pre-order and get a skin of one of the mounted creatures you'll be able to utilise, as well as some other decorative items, and this should be available for a month on Steam at least, so don't worry about buying it if you want to make sure you see some gameplay first. There have been no announcements or plans said about whether or not the game will ever come to an Xbox or back ported over to a PS4, and with it scheduled to be in early access for at least a year, pretty much all the way through till 2026. Even if it does come to other platforms, it may be a while. There is an extensive roadmap which I've gone over in a separate video, but I'll give you the post-it notes now. The rest of this year, just mopping up any kind of bugs and making sure the game's stable after its launch. Beginning of 2025, new regions, new quest lines, and an enhanced offline play mode. As currently on some platforms like Steam, you may not necessarily be able to sync or save certain achievements until you go and reconnect. Photo mode will also be one of the first things that they add too. In Q2, they're going to be adding more about how you manage your mounts. Player character customization. At the moment, you can only play as one particular gender, but it's important to note that the characters permanently have masks added to them until at least this character customization might come in or not. And the characters look pretty androgynous. So every time you've seen the lead character from Stellar Blade and you've been repulsed as the thought of playing as a woman, well, don't panic, you won't be getting that experience here with Towers. Lots of improvements to multiplayer, new system for the townsfolk, and then Q3 enhancing the more combat and dangerous areas in the Withered. Adding new weather types and by looks of things a cold region and improving your relationships with creatures. Q4 a water type biome or a new one at least, particularly maybe looking like a swamp, as well as enhancements to fishing. And at the start 2026 or therefore after, they'll have more quest lines, new dangerous areas to go and explore, new increased tower levels, which is the main part of the game alongside growing your trees, is to build up your village settlement as tall as it can be, more building customization and more improvements to town happiness, as well as improving the environment with a new region that looks to be maybe a bit more desert-like, or perhaps lava. By the looks of the trailers, there are certainly some cutscenes that dictate it will be a bit of a handheld experience for the first few hours, with little tutorials and guides showing you how to play before letting you loose on the lands of AGHASBA. There'll be many NPCs and townfolk that you'll meet, and they'll have quests for you to hopefully go and take part in, as well as earn rewards. The story is you are one of the Shimu people trying to go back to AGHASBA after some sort of disaster has caused your people to flee many years before. There may or may not be something very special about you or stuff that you find that hopefully has you helping your settlements to grow and basically retake AGHASBA and make it into a lush land once again. So it will have much more of a narrative than other maybe open world games like, say for instance Valheim, but maybe not so fully story led like something like Breath of the Wild. And while the game is still obviously being made and the story may change or adapt, the certain promise is that there will be a satisfying conclusion if you reach the end of the content that's available now. So what will it have at launch? 6 regions for you to go and explore, 3 different types of ecosystems to go ahead and grow, over 50 different creatures to discover, as well as 150 decorations to craft, various different weapons, gliders, and absolutely certain different types of mounts, but again pretty limited at the moment to what looks to be more like donkeys. It will have controller support on PC, but I'm not too sure if it will support keyboard and mouse on a PlayStation just yet. There's been no mention of any kind of dedicated servers, something a lot of survival and open world crafting fans like, which brings us on how to play with your friends. The Animal Crossing influence is absolutely there in how you invite your friends to play in your world. You'll eventually share a code with them and then they'll be able to go ahead and visit your world. The devs have said that there'll be ways that you can trade with other players. So while there might not be necessarily shared progress, if you go and do a lot with your friend, you can at least hopefully bar with each other and get some resources. Developers have said that they will maybe add places where you can go and share your codes and other players will then be able to go and visit and see what kind of creations you've made with your settlements and your farms. For now, it looks like we can simply go ahead and mount large objects with a huge amount of gameplay focused around climbing, but not just statues, also creatures too. Again, with another influence being Shadow the Colossus, I'd be very surprised if we didn't see some sort of giant taking on gameplay where we may have to fight enemies while riding atop their backs. For now though, the basics are there. Ranged combat using arrows with a bow, various different swords and spears, and that's pretty much it in terms of what we can gather from the trailers. I can't imagine there'll be any kind of PvP or friendly fire enabled in this game. As mentioned earlier in their roadmap, they are working on crossplay. So eventually you will be able to play on PC with your friends on PlayStation. What about transferring your saves? Currently there is a mechanic that they've got working for PC to PlayStation, although it may not be live with the early access launch. but they are diligently working on the other way round so that you may be able to have your progress from your PlayStation appear on your PC, and that will be, I'm sure, added in the future. What about other devices? Yes, it will be available on Steam Deck and playable, with the Steam Deck actually being their low-end device on PC, being their benchmark. It still might be a bit of a work in progress with changes to UI to be being made. You may need to free up some chunky space on your Steam Deck though, as it is around 15 to 20 GB install and around 15 GB on a PlayStation 5. And finishing off with number 10, I think you need to know this. I have been hyped for this game for years and years. I first covered it back on my older, bigger survival channel Jade PG, where I basically showed a bunch of the trailers and was really excited by the prototype. It's taken them a long time, it's a small little team, so go easy on them if there's a few bugs or issues in the first few days. I truly believe they're making something special here, maybe not quite fitting in the full kind of survival genre, but certainly in the city building and open world crafting genre. You should be taking pleasure and delight in planning out and building your towns and settlements while keeping that balance with the ecology around you by not overhunting, or by certainly making sure you've got plenty of resources regrowing with trees and encouraging more of the wildlife. The adventures into the Withered Lands, where you'll hopefully transform them into something more habitable, are going to keep you a bit more occupied, especially for fans who want a bit of danger. And as far as I can tell, they haven't ruled out having other creatures that you'll be able to ride and utilise as maybe tames in the future. It just might not be the focus just yet. So hopefully that video has helped you work out what the game is and what it's not, what to expect with its early access launch. I will be here with a ton of guides. I'm going to have gameplay up the minute it goes live, the first 30 minutes or so, so make sure you subscribe, you've got notification bell dinged. My name's Jade, and I'll see you ratbags later.